Morning, guys. We've got a bit of an early start this morning. We've got a long day scheduled, Matt.
Yes, early for us. I mean,
Early for
there's
us.
probably people in the UK that think it's the middle of the day. But
Very true. Very true. So we thought we'd come live this morning with a little why in the bag for both the PGA Tour, and we've had requests for doing a little more LPGA coverage.
Yeah.
Especially, obviously, a major weekend. We did say that a couple of weeks ago that we were going to try to, if there is a major, throw the spotlight on that event for the
We're keeping our
for the
promise.
week. Yeah, absolutely. And it's been overdue to do a little LPGA kind of review. We done a little bit on Brooke Henderson maybe a month or so ago, or 6 weeks ago when she won.
Brief chat about it.
We talked a little bit about her unique setup, and so I think the thing I like about the LPGA players are their speeds are very representative of our average viewer.
Yeah, so you were all, maybe the fastest players in the LPGA are a bit faster than your average male, but most of them are kind of in that 90 to 95 mile an hour driver speed.
Last time TrackMan published their average clubhead speeds, the average LPGA clubhead speed was 94 miles an hour.
No, it's
Last
perfect.
time they published the average male, golfer's clubhead speed, it was 94 miles an hour. So there's a real correlation to that. I mean, I know I talk to people all the time about going actually to watch LPGA events or ladies, where it be Ladies European Tour events, and they thoroughly enjoy it because they can actually get a little bit more to it. When you go and watch the PGA Tour guys, it's kind of like...
It's off the map for most people.
They're so, like, these guys they hit it so long, and they're not saying that the women aren't good at all, but these guys they do things that the general golfer can't do.
True.
That's not the same on the LPGA Tour. With the short game stuff, they do things
I was just going to say, so you can learn more from the short game and how straight they hit it and how steady they are in their course management and stuff. There is more for an average person to pick up.
When you watch someone like, when MB Park is on a roll with that putter, I mean, she's as good as any putter on the planet.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether you want to call it male golf, female golf, she's just golf. She's as good as there is on the planet when she gets it rolling. So,
totally.
Let's start with there then. And Ariya Jutanugarn was our winner this week in the Ladies US Open. Had a big lead, had built up, earned a big lead
going into Sunday,
Yep, and then she actually built up to 7 shots and started to kind of fritter it away a little bit.
Yep, she definitely did. So to let that lead go and then get into a playoff and then end up winning takes some guts to do that. I mean,
that absolutely
most people would be totally deflated if you lose a lead like that. So good for her.
Yeah, absolutely. So she's done really well, and I'm not sure how much we've kind of discovered through our own research. There's not that much coverage of what's in
no.
PGA
We
players.
kind of had a hard time finding. We found general specs like clubs.
Yeah.
The shaft specs were a little harder. We did a little digging. We can probably get the models.
Yeah.
Maybe not the exact specs the way that the male golfers are, but
Right.
they're gonna have to start picking that info up a little bit.
Absolutely, they really should do, and that's maybe somewhere where we can kind of give them a little nudge on that one. But
For sure.
So Ariya has no driver.
No driver, which is crazy.
Which is interesting. So, I think that's certainly testament to her firepower that she doesn't feel like she needs a driver. She carries that's a slightly older TaylorMade 3-wood, an Aeroburn or TP.
Pretty old, yeah.
Yep, 15 degree. So she'll hit between that and her faithful trusty 2-iron.
Yep.
She hits that off most tee boxes. And to be fair to her, she hits it as long, if not longer, even with those two clubs than most of the other LPGA girls.
She is probably the longest out there in terms of clubhead speed.
Clubhead speed, yeah. I mean, she'll move 3-wood at somewhere around 106, 105, 106 on 3-wood. Yeah, very quick.
That's crazy. Yeah.
She'll regularly post ball speeds in the mid to high 150s with her 3-wood. So she can certainly shift it out there with that. So when the courses are 6,400 yards, the premium being on hitting the fairways. There's no wonder she doesn't feel the need to hit a driver all the time.
It's true.
She's a supreme talent, and I think the thing with her was always her mental game.
Yep.
So, she works with her swing coach, Gary Gilchrist, her short game coach, Gareth Raflewski.
Yep.
But she attributes a lot of her improvement to working with Pia Nielsen and then the Vision 54 team.
Right.
So Lynn Pia really helped her the most. I mean, there's stories of her walking off the golf course during practice rounds. The last time she was, I think it was a few years ago at the US Open practice round, she walked off the golf course after 6 holes because she just literally couldn't keep it in the planet.
Really, just frustrated.
Just couldn't do it. Yeah, I mean, you know, talked to some other shaft manufacturers who have made her driver shafts in the past. Said that, you know, she's at times, you know, can hit a driver on an absolute frozen rope as straight as you could hit a golf ball, takes it on the golf course and doesn't feel it. So, you know, the mental part of the game is
it's huge.
Huge.
Yeah,
it's huge. So, Aero Burner 3-wood TP 15 degrees with Kurokage XT shaft you know very well.
Yep.
So, we're unable to dig up what weight and
the
flex
exact
that was.
specs of it.
Yeah.
I mean, you could probably guess it's the 60.
I mean, I would maybe guess if she's playing it, you know, at standard 3-wood length at 43 inches, she might have went up to 70.
70, yeah.
Yeah, just to kind of keep the overall weight. I mean, you know, guys, when you're taking a 60-gram shaft, so say it's 63 grams at raw length, which is 46 inches. Okay, if you're putting that into a 3-wood. You have to cut that shaft down to 41.5 inches. Okay, so when you take that 46-inch shaft, divide that by 63 grams, times that by the new weight, you've got to see that weight is actually going to be more like 57 grams.
Yeah, you lose quite a bit.
You lose quite a bit. So that's why when it comes to 3-woods, you see that step progression with weighting. So you see the 60 in the driver, maybe in the 70 in the 3-wood. That might be a fairly regular sort of occurrence to see that.
Interesting, yeah.
Yep, so she's got 3 tailor-made irons. She's got 2 tailor-made UDI driving irons, a 2 and a 3.
The UDI like Tiger's using, same one?
Yep, exactly. And then she has the RSI UDI in her 4 iron. And then she's got 716 AP2s, last year's version of that, or the last edition of the AP2. So clearly not someone who tinkers too much with her equipment.
No, that's older stuff, couple cycles old.
For sure, and she's obviously found a formula that works for her, and like we said, it's not really about the firepower, she just must have the consistency she needs. She actually uses a really interesting shaft in those irons that she plays. She plays an Aerotech J-Spec.
They're graphite iron shafts?
Graphite core with the steel wire wrapped around them.
Okay, yeah.
Quite a lot of you guys will be familiar with Aerotech and the steel fibre shafts, but you'll be very familiar with the grey shaft with the silver band. If you actually go and see Ariya's irons, she uses the grey shaft with the yellow band.
Okay.
That's how you can tell that they're J-Spec. J-Spec being lighter and more tip soft, which is an interesting mix for somebody who hits it hard.
It is, and it's also interesting that she uses kind of low lofted irons instead of hybrids. Like a lot of the ladies are using woods and hybrids in their long clubs. She's kind of gone driving iron, but then more tip soft shafts to kind of get, I mean, obviously it works for her, whatever she's comfortable with.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, you know, I certainly, you know, I've seen some of the club fitters that she works with back in Thailand, I believe it is, and you know, maybe just some of the stuff that she had tried, you know, in those shops were more J-Spec type shafts, and you know, she just found one that you know, she had her timing with, and as we always talk about, that's the bit that matters.
That's what it is, yeah.
You know, people go, well, it's a tip soft shaft, she'll hit that too high.
Clearly not.
Says who, you know, she clearly doesn't. She's, I mean, I would say she's probably top five sort of supreme talents in the women's game right now.
Yeah.
When she gets hot, she's probably the best out there. You know, that's been kind of evident in the last few years.
Definitely. Yeah, it's just amazing success so far. So it'll be interesting to see how that progresses. Maybe if she can find a driver that works.
Well, I mean, you know, I've said for a long time that, you know, I felt that there would be a female player that came along and swung the driver more like at the male speeds.
Like 110, 112.
110, 112, yeah, and do that fairly regular and be a good driver of the golf ball that would just turn these 6,400-yard golf course into mincemeat. You know, they would just be hitting wedges into par 5s, you know, driving onto the front edge of a bunch of par 4s.
And that'd be like kind of the Dustin Johnson equivalent on the ladies tour, or like when John Daly was out and where Tiger first came out.
I think you know, I think of it like when Tiger came out and before they started Tiger-proofing golf courses, making them 7,700 yards and that type of thing. you know, Tiger was just making, you know, what he done to Augusta that first year in '97.
I know.
You know, hitting wedges into 13 and 15 and that type of thing. It was
alive.
crazy. So, you know, there's an opportunity for someone to certainly come onto the LPGA tour and have that speed. I think we all probably thought Michelle Wie was going to be a bit like that when she was hitting at 280 at the age of 13.
Yep.
You know, playing the Sony Open and that type of thing. So. Yeah, interesting stuff.
It is interesting stuff.
I know. On the wedges, Ariya uses, what do we say, Vokey wedges. There wasn't any spec. We weren't able to get any spec on shafts and that sort of thing. So really tough to try and get enough information.
Hopefully the next ladies one we do has a little more information.
Yeah.
But it's tougher to get. I get for whatever reason they just don't publish the full specs the way that the men. I mean,
That's right.
We're gonna get into Bryson's bag, and you could know probably the paint color code on his driver if you wanted to. There's literally every little thing.
Yeah.
So it'll get there. Maybe we can be the ones that encourage these websites to get a little more detail.
Absolutely, I think that's a very good point. I think the women's game in general has come, you know, a long way in the last 4 or 5 years. I think it was kind of, you know, just not getting any airtime at all for a while there.
Fair to say.
Definitely. So no, it's in a good spot right now. So and a big shout out to a friend of mine, Gareth Rafluski, who's on the coaching team.
That's right.
For Ariya. Big shout out to Gareth. He's an unbelievable short game coach, unbelievable coach, but very much specialises in the short game with a bunch of the LPGA Tour players.
He's based out of
London, Ontario.
Right?
Yeah, Riverbend Golf Club, and you know what? There probably is not a more underrated golf coach that I know of anywhere. I mean, you know, he coaches both the Jutanugarn sisters, Carolyn Masson, Lydia Ko. You know, there's probably 10, 12, you know, LPGA players out there that he works with right now.
No one knows about him.
No one gives him the recognition he deserves. So he certainly does deserve it. He's a phenomenal coach. We send you know, some of our customers here at TXG down to him if they want to go and you know, get some short game work done.
Very
you
cool.
know, he's always been very good at accommodating our customers and that type of thing. So
maybe someone we can chat with on the channel in the future.
I think so. I think that, you know, we did actually speak to him about that at the PGA show, about doing some wedge and some putting stuff. I think, guys, you'll get some huge value out of that. So we'll plan that for the summer.
Awesome.
Good. Excellent. Right, let's dive into Mr. DeChambeau.
Mad scientist.
Let's
do it.
Always an interesting, you know, bag in terms of the debate on how he sets his bag up. Completely unique in how he goes about it.
It's about as strange as any. Well, it is the strangest by far on tour. Would you say?
Yeah.
There's no one with a more unique kind of approach. One length irons,
not even close.
Gigantic grips. You know, weird fairway wood setup, which we'll get into. But
yeah, I mean, I think Bryson kind of a few years back, I think it was the hope that he would, you know, pioneer a new movement in golf towards kind of, you know, one length irons especially, and that to produce, you know, more consistency in golfers through being in the same posture position. And, you know, there's some logic to that.
There is some. Yep.
You know, there really is. But I think it's struggled to catch the imagination.
So this is the question that gets posted a lot.
Yeah.
And generally we just say, you know, our answer so far has been, listen, we don't fit for it here. In your experience, it's just not something, based on all the other options that you have to fit someone and improve them. Yeah. It's just not something you've seen that's, you know, you don't take the majority of players and go, I really want to try one length with this guy. Yeah. No. It just doesn't seem to be, you know, as strong an option as maybe they were hoping it would be. Yeah. Is that fair to say? Definitely.
I would say there's a couple of key variables that have to be in place before one length can be an option. The major one is speed. You have to have some really good speed to be able to separate your yardages when the golf club doesn't change length.
Which is an issue for slower swing speed players, even with variable length clubs.
Exactly. Therein lies your problem. So the first edition of one length, which I'd tested, I didn't find to be all that good. Largely because the heads weren't engineered with different sort of center of gravity locations, ball speed, output sort of design. So what I mean by that is, you know, if you're not going to create different amounts of leverage from 4-iron to pitch and wedge.
Yeah.
You're not going to swing one faster.
You're not going to swing it faster.
Not significantly faster. And I'll go back to that kind of the speed thing in a second. But if you're not going to change your speed by that significant amount, it's hard to create the leverage that you do with a standard set, because when you go in half-inch increments, like most of us do, that allows you to hit the ball a little bit further. That and loft, length and loft.
But we've seen that the ball speed differences in our test from when we've hit some short irons to the 6-iron.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Oh, it's a ton.
It's a ton of actual club head and ball speed. And then, as you say, you take the loft in addition, and you're adding even more ball speed.
That's right. So, I think the first edition of the Cobra 1-length irons struggled because they didn't factor in progressive CG locations, progressive, face ball speed from the club face. The second edition, they did address that, which was nice to see. So, they talked a little bit about engineering every iron individually and specifically for that job, which was definitely better. But I guess I've heard of some people who like 1-length. I've heard of more people who don't like 1-length.
Interesting.
And the majority of the time, people tell me that what happens is after 6-iron, the yardages just bunch up.
They just get to be almost the same.
Exactly. So they struggle to swing it quicker. The lack of extra speed doesn't allow there to be enough energy produced in the ball. So the loss of loft creates the ball to just basically fall out the
Dumps
sky.
out the sky.
Doesn't create enough energy.
You almost need to just go, the 5 and 4 need to be some kind of a hybrid design. Would you say that's fair? Like, it almost needs to be...
And they have that. They actually have that hybrid now. They have a 1-length hybrid.
So that probably, would that help a little bit, you'd think? Because it should give them a little more ball speed?
I tried the 1-length hybrid, and I tried it at the same length. I tried it at the same loft as my current 5-iron. 4-iron and 5-iron. I remember hitting my 5-iron further than the utility, the hybrid, basically.
Which shouldn't be the case.
No. I mean, and what the Cobra rep said to me was, it's not designed for you, and that's my point. There's only certain people that this is designed for.
That, yeah.
If you struggle a lot with your gaming consistency and striking it, being in the same posture position on the same plane with the same angle of attack and path and delivery dynamics, I can get how that could improve you.
Because there's definitely people that have come in and said, listen, this really helps me.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to why you guys never go through it.
I know.
And now that makes sense, because yes, it does help, but it's a small segment.
There are people that it will help, and there are people that it won't help. That's, I think, the moral of the story. So we're not bashing it to the point where we say there's no value in it, far from it.
Yeah.
But we, I think it's, being selective of your issues and knowing when to go to it. So Bryson uses an older driver.
Yeah. Is that a previous generation Cobra?
Yep. He uses the King Limited Pro. So really, we actually done really good with that driver. But it was a really good
you said it was a good model, right?
It was good. It was very fast, quite low spin. So he uses that and pretty low loft, 7.9 degrees of loft.
Crazy.
So yeah, he uses it. So it's actually, it says on his loft sleeve that it's 7.5, but 7.9 is what he plays it exactly. And Bryson would have it exactly.
I'm surprised it doesn't say 7.912 and 10 more decimals on it.
If he had access to those extra decimal points, I'm sure he'd want to know them.
Yeah.
So he uses that in the driver and Project X Hazardous T1100.
Yeah, so that's the stiffest one that they make, pretty much?
Very, very stiff, exceptionally stiff. And the Hazardous Black is something most of you will be familiar with, but the Hazardous T1100 is even more stiffer than that.
Interesting.
Twice as stiff in the tip section is the Hazardous Black. So, that works for him with the driver. Something I've seen him progress into, which has been really interesting. When he first came on the scene, he actually used a very short driver.
He did? Okay.
Yeah, he used quite a short driver, and he's progressed into a 45.5-inch driver now. So maybe for him that's something that as he's got out on tour and saw the need for a little extra firepower to be competitive. He's kind of went to some longer driver or wood shaft driver shaft specifically to find that.
He actually hits it pretty far. I
mean, he can. Yeah.
He's not the longest out there, but based on kind of everything he does, he can definitely poke it out there pretty good.
He'll be kind of the low to mid 170s, probably lower 170s ball speed wise. He'll be hanging around there, which is just good. That will be keep you competitive. There won't be golf courses that you can't go and play. Some of the guys who are kind of you know, the Chez Reeves of the world who have their ball speeds in the kind of low to mid 160s.
Right.
There are certain golf courses that just get a little bit big.
Too much for them, yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
I mean, it places too much pressure on the rest of their game. But no, at those speeds, Bryson can be pretty much competitive.
And you know his numbers are completely optimized, I'm sure. Like, you know he's dialed those in to where he gets the most out of that
you always see pictures of him with his TrackMan and...
oh no, he's.
I want to say that was just a quad.
He's got a quad.
I think I did see a quad.
Because I saw Forsyth post on Instagram that, you know, congrats to Bryson. He's a GC quad owner.
Fellow GC quad owner. Good
GC
for him.
quad
Welcome
owner,
to the team.
Yep.
So, you know, that's the driver for him. And he's a Cobra guy through 13 clubs. Yeah, the only one he doesn't have is the putter.
The putter, yeah.
Yeah. So he's got the King Limited 3-wood.
Yep.
Notorious for how low loft he plays the 3-wood. He's played it as low as 11 degrees in the past.
Which is bizarre to me. Really bizarre.
Yeah, so currently there's reports that he plays it at 14.5. The sticker that's on his right now actually says 12.
12, which is still crazy.
Yeah. I mean, just you know, shows you what he's trying to kind of get out the you know, the 3-wood, trying to get a little bit more out it, trying to have it be a little lower spin.
It's got to be a T club, I would imagine. I can't see him hitting that off the turf too often because he also has a 14 degree.
That's what I was going to say. You know, based on the fact he uses the Cobra F8 baffler at around 14 and a half.
As a 5-wood.
as a 5-wood, another 5-wood.
Yes.
Well,
super strong 5-wood. Yeah.
Hard to call that 5-wood. It's really, he uses a driver, a 2-wood, and a 3-wood.
Yes,
doesn't
he does. That's right.
That's really what it is.
Yeah.
Staying in the True Temper family, hazardous black shaft. He actually. True Temper, I'd be curious to do a bit more digging with the guys at True Temper and Don Brown and those guys who designed that shaft. And he actually had a hazardous black made for him.
Really?
Yeah.
Custom one.
So yeah, on the little spec. So there's a little kind of square that's on the hazardous black shaft, and where it says the weight, the torque, the flight, and the flex.
Okay.
And there was one that had BDCB, Bryson DeChambeau. So his own spec. So, you know, again, cool. You know, something that he's probably had a preference at some point for a certain feel and torque or performance characteristic, and the guys have actually catered that to him. The benefit of being a tour pro, eh?
It's definitely the benefit of being a tour pro. I mean, it's funny because there's so many shafts that someone can get into, and it's amazing that within the hundreds of options, guys like that still say, listen, this is not quite what I want. Can you make me this, and this?
True, isn't it?
And of course, why wouldn't they do it? I mean, I don't know the manufacturing process. I mean, you'd know better than me. How difficult is it to go and make a one-off shaft for somebody?
So there's countless stories of players who have broke a driver, a gamer, and just can't get back to the way that it feels.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I mean, as much as the specs may show the same, and you measure it and do all the testing, and it'll be, you know, decimal points apart and grams and torque and all that sort of thing, to make two identical shafts. Our friends at TPT might disagree with us, but basically impossible.
Really?
Remember when Kenny Perry broke his Adams driver, going back a few years. A friend of mine, Scott Kroll, was working for Adams at the time, and they were fitting him into a new Adams driver, and he was devastated because he was playing the best golf of his life at that point.
He broke his driver.
He was using, I think it was a UST VTS shaft in that, the variable torque system, and they built him. They said, "Here's Kenny. Here's the identical driver. We'll built it to the exact spec," and he just hit a couple of times and went, "Yeah, it's not the same. It's just not the same." So as hard as you know, as trying to replicate shaft specs, to your point, very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Even when you control as many of the variables as we can within that build process.
Especially when you get a guy who is in tune to that kind of stuff as Bryson.
Yeah, exactly.
You can feel the most fractional thing.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute. So in terms of his irons, he uses the one length. He uses the Cobra utility irons, which is actually an adjustable iron.
Is
so
it?
Yeah, so they have a loft sleeve on the irons.
Every iron has a loft sleeve.
So just his 3 and 4 iron.
Okay, so long irons.
Yeah, just the
That's
long
different.
irons. So he can sort of, which is pretty cool.
It's cool, yeah.
Yeah, but obviously, you know, we can get the same out the bending bar. You just
yeah, so you can. That's interesting. That it's kind of a weird I get it's more for golfers to do it, like they can adjust theirs on the range kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, because obviously these guys have the tour van.
Yeah.
If you want to adjust it, an adjustment, you just go bend it. But.
Yeah. And actually, I played that Cobra utility iron. It's very, very good. It's really quick, looks good. It's not one of those utility irons with a super wide sole that when you lose the loft, you can see the back of the golf club.
Okay, so it's the more narrow.
Yeah, so
nice.
That's some people know. I mean, when you really lose loft in the golf club, you're so aware of if it has a wide sole, how much mass
you can
is at
see
the back.
it, right? Yeah,
can be a little bit off-putting at times. But no, this is a good-looking one. And then obviously in his irons, he's got his one-length irons with his dynamic gold X7 shafts.
X7s, yeah.
Yep, he's been using some Nippon Modus 130s over the years, but right now he's using some X7s. So he's obviously got a great relationship with the True Temper guys.
Yeah.
They're taking good care of him. That makes sense to me that he would go to a company and kind of go deeper with that company.
And they'll be more willing to work with him deeper because he's
Yep.
playing all their stuff.
I think that's exactly
Yeah.
it. So they can start to dial in his preferences and get a feel for what he likes. So again, that probably limits the amount of technicians he has to work with as well. And
Right.
they can really dial him in, which is exactly
cool,
what
yeah.
he wants. So in terms of his spec, he uses all the irons are 37.5 inches.
So what is that, a 6-iron length?
We would call that 6-iron in our standard world. So all of his irons are that length.
It's so strange.
Yep.
So his 9-iron is the length of a 6-iron.
Wedge. I mean, that was the
Pitching
thing.
wedges too.
Mm-hmm. Yep. When I tried the wedges, those were the most off-putting for me.
I would think so.
Yeah. Just because of how long they were. It just didn't feel right hitting a touch shot, a field shot with such a long club. It felt difficult.
I can see that. Yeah.
A challenge.
Yeah.
So he uses the Cobra wedges. They're all custom ground. There's nothing standard about them. When you actually see the pictures of them, maybe we can post a couple of those pictures so you guys can see it. He has very custom grinds on them. He uses a lot of sole radius. So some players like a little bit more of a kind of flat standard. So he really likes a very rounded.
Are you talking about
sole.
from toe to heel this way?
No, from front to back.
Front to back.
From leading edge to trail edge
Gotcha.
of the sole.
Gotcha.
He really has a lot of radius to it, a lot of camber.
Camber, that's the word, okay.
Yeah, so everything about Bryson is truly custom.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then the putter he is using?
He uses a putter by a company who are based in Orlando called Sick Putters.
Okay. Never heard of them.
Yeah, so they kind of have a technology where it's designed to encourage more forward rotation on the golf ball. Sort of, when I saw it, quite similar to the Bobby Grace model that we carry in here with the radial face, which is a bit of a curved face.
Yep.
So, as you're, if you're someone who the stroke breaks down a little bit and you add additional loft, the face being curved will counter the amount of upward movement in the putter. So it's interesting.
Smart design.
Something, very smart design, very useful for people who struggle with their speed control, especially if you come up short. Radial face technology is something that's super helpful. Get the ball, tumbling towards the hole a little easier.
Interesting.
Yeah, so he uses a graphite shaft in his putter.
Does he? I didn't even notice that.
Uses it's called a Matrix LPZ 180.
So what is the deal, quickly, with the graphite shaft or any custom shaft that isn't just a regular steel and a putter?
So this is we've not touched this before.
Never.
One of the very few things we probably haven't talked about.
Knocking it off the list.
So from a material standpoint, you have more. You have more capability to manipulate the shaft with graphite than you can ever have with steel.
Okay.
Because of the strength to weight ratio.
Right.
Okay, so you can make that graphite shaft so much stiffer than a steel shaft could ever be.
Really?
Because of the strength to weight ratio, you're dealing with a steel tube. The wall thickness has to be kind of what it is, because if you go thicker, you add so much weight because there's the material weight to the strength.
The balance off.
It's gone. So when you get to graphite, so Bryson uses a 192 gram putter shaft.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
And the standard one's like 120 or something like that?
Yeah, about 120 to 130 would be your window of a standard shaft. And if most of you grab your putters, give them a little flex, they're pretty soft. That's that real flaw. You know, I see in people who don't pick a putter shaft to their tempo. So if you gave, you know, Brandt Snedeker with his kind of pop stroke, you know, a really, really soft shaft would probably feel like the putter's all over the place. Give it to someone like someone out there with a nice kind of soft flowing stroke, you know,
you can get away with it.
You can get away with that much more. So go back to shafts and tempo and timing. I was
going to say, it's funny how that actually translates into, I didn't know that it translated into putters to that degree.
Yeah, we spent actually a bit of time a few years back with Accra developing actually 4 putter shafts.
Really?
That have different flex profiles. So there was the 100 series for the people with a nice, slow, slightly longer stroke, and that would give them the right amount of sort of feel and energy transfer. Then the 200 and 300 series got progressively stiffer, and then they were very keen to call the 400 series the Ian Fraser shaft.
Did they?
Yeah, so it was nice.
Nice.
Well, we kind of, I'd specifically asked them for make it as stiff as you can.
Right, you know, for the extreme, right?
For absolute extreme. So to give you a bit of perspective, a driver shaft that's extra stiff is about 265 CPM at raw length. Okay. So cycles per minute. That's how we measure in frequency. Then they made a putter shaft that was, I want to say it was up around 380 CPM.
Wow. That's wild.
But that's the material capabilities of graphite.
Right.
So you can make that shaft super, super stiff. So if you don't want, you know, to feel the shaft, if you don't want any vibration, if you want to minimize that, actually plays a huge part in when you have mishits. The stiffer the shaft, the less you feel the mishits.
Really?
Which is a good and bad thing, but
depends on the player.
Depends on the player, and it's something we'll get into from a testing standpoint.
I didn't know about any of that, to be honest with you. I knew there were graphite putter shafts, but that's where my
always like throwing a little curveball at you, man.
You have to. It's not that hard to do, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So he uses that. He also has a really interesting setup with his putter grip. He uses the Flatso 17-inch, which is the full-length Flatso.
Right,
by Super Stroke.
It's the one down that goes down further than on the shaft.
And then he puts it on sideways.
Yeah, I've seen that.
See that?
And it faces the target, like the flat side is on the target? Right.
Yeah, which actually is not, I mean, a bunch of tour players have tried that and it's becoming a bit more commonplace.
Yeah.
We get requested to do that in here from time to time.
What's the logic behind that?
Just a few things, just, you know, where I think, you know, from when you put that ridge into the lifelines of the hands, it can feel like you can sort of, you know, with that flat part of the putter leading towards the hole, you know, if you keep that, you know, going towards the hole, very similar to keeping the back of your left hand working. Yeah, because it's all face control.
Of course.
So ultimately,
he's lining up the side of the grip with the club face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea.
Match that up.
I should try that too. After the way I putted this weekend, that might be something to try for me too.
Yeah. So that's Bryson's bag.
Should we take a few questions?
Let's do it.
This is actually a good one that just came in. Have a fitting on Saturday, drivers and irons. What questions should I ask during the fitting for the best experience?
It's a great question.
Yeah, great question.
I really, really like that one. Be mindful before you go in. Who are we addressing that to? Jesse, be mindful before you go in of what it is you're looking to achieve. Maybe set yourself some goals of what you're actually looking to achieve. Maybe have a little bit of a deeper think in your game as to what will actually provide you with what improvement would look like. Is that distance? Is that increased, you know, consistency with the irons from a dispersion and distance standpoint? Is there a particular miss you're looking to eliminate with the driver? So you can really give your fitter as much feedback as possible.
You have to communicate with them.
You have to, and then in the fit when you're hitting different shots, you know, be very, very sort of you know, frank and sort of honest with how certain ones feel. If it doesn't feel good to your fitter, just tell them and give them an idea. And don't worry about trying to articulate yourself in a true kind of golfing sense. Don't worry about if your vocabulary, you know, from a fitting perspective isn't kind of, you know, to what you hear some of the things we talk about. If it feels flexy or if it feels whatever, like just, you know, let
them know.
Be kind of just honest with all that sort of stuff.
Very good. Quickly back to the one length stuff. Are the wedges like your 60, your 56, your 50 wedge? Are those one length as well?
Yeah.
Seriously.
All the clubs.
So a 60-degree wedge that's a 6-iron length. How do you chip with that? Be weird, no?
Yeah.
That's pretty strange.
It's
a solid, how many inches long is that over a normal 60? 4?
2.5.
Oh, that's it, okay.
Yeah.
But that's,
35 inches.
Substantial though, no? That would take some getting used to. I mean, to me, I would think that would almost take more getting used to than, the shorter irons. To go to all of a sudden start chipping with something that's 2.5 degrees longer, that's got to be tough.
Definitely. Let's start at the top and work our way down some of these. Bradley, where's Bradley?
That's the one we just got to, yeah.
Bradley boy, good morning.
Morning, Bradley. This is good. We get some questions on this. The shaft flowing process.
Flow. We don't flow shafts. We don't pure shafts. We don't spine shafts in here.
Right.
We decided the best approach for TXG would be just to handpick the best shafts available on the
Gotcha.
market.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, the better the manufacturing process, the less you need to try to improve the playing consistency of that shaft.
Gotcha.
If we take a company like TPT, for example, we talk about the radial consistency of or radial deviation of a TPT shaft. That shaft on average will only change 3.2 cycles per minute and all 360 degrees.
And that's shaft. You guys, could they search, is that a YouTube video? Because you've shown it to me before. The radial consistency test, they put it on that machine and it's how much it does this.
Absolutely.
You sent it to me?
Yep.
And it's the amount to which that occurs.
Exactly.
And their shafts just barely move.
Yeah, so if you install a shaft on a certain a certain plane or just insert it a certain way relative to probably where the logo on the shaft is.
Okay.
And there's a strength or weakness in that shaft, the shaft will always try to find its most stable plane. So when you load it and unload it, if it's not on its most stable plane, it will actually oscillate until it finds that stable plane.
Right.
And obviously what we're trying to do with a golf shaft is load it and sort of unload it to create energy. Like we talk about as a shaft playing the role of a spring.
Yep.
So if we're loading it and unloading it and it wants to load on a different plane at a different angle, the first thing that's going to be compromised is the club face.
So that's where you can just add, if someone were to take a shaft manufacturer that maybe didn't, or a model that didn't have quite the standards you're talking about with TPT, then maybe it's worth having the shaft checked with a spining process.
Sure.
And they could get a bit more consistency.
Like we always say, general rule of thumb is the lower quality of the shaft, the more it would probably help.
Benefit.
Yeah.
So even if someone said wanted to save some money and get a stock shaft that fit them nicely, they could go to a club builder and have it spined and then reinstalled.
Right.
Decent option. Okay. This is a good one here, and a lot of people have asked this. They asked it on our hybrid video as well. A lot of people find that the hybrid goes left or hooks for them. Is there anything inherently from the design of the club that would cause that? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely designed to do that, given that most golfers struggle with the slice. Okay. So, it was probably, just from a weighting perspective, hybrids have always had that design characteristic. Whether it be the lie angle being a little more upright that plays that role, the weighting of the golf club. I still think the hybrid is the one club of all the clubs out there that still has the longest way to go to find a design that is considered optimal. Interesting. Yeah, I think that's the one that can still progress the most. And if someone was struggling with it, are there models, manufacturers that you know of that make a more fade biased? I would think Titleist would make a pretty fade biased one. Definitely, the 818's H2 is definitely is more neutral in its bias, and obviously with the Sure Fit sleeve, you can play that a little bit flatter as well, which will still encourage that. Yeah, definitely. The better players I work with will go there, and actually, what the better players that have those issues, they end up gravitating towards a long iron, don't they? They end up going towards a driving iron of some kind. Because it tends to not hook for them as much. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Interesting. This is a question we should probably answer live. When are the ball fitting videos coming? When are the ball fitting? We could probably get started on them in the next little bit. We're probably going to start. Would you say we'll start with a driver one? Because I know we want to kind of work the opposite of backwards to say. It's not a huge amount of difference on the driver, and then we can show that there is a bigger difference short game wise. It's interesting how many of you a ton of comments, tons of comments. Just shows you,
always just think this leads the the manufacturer should be paying attention to this, because it's obviously where they're not doing their good enough
confusion.
Job is
total confusion.
But I think so many people get confused with what is information and what's marketing.
Yes.
That's the hard bit.
And what is performance and what is marketing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we definitely need to do a deeper dive into that, and it's probably of higher value to do it outside.
You think so? Okay.
I do.
Now, in terms of short game stuff, we should do that part of it.
We're going to do it. We're definitely going to do that part of outside. But I think
we could do the driver ball fit with the quad indoors.
Yeah, we could do. Yep. I mean, it's the same tee. The ball's hit off indoors as
exactly,
outdoors.
Yeah, no difference.
Stay
tuned. It's coming. I mean, the number of requests, it's definitely moving up our priority list big time.
Absolutely.
That's a good one too. How much can a wrong lie angle affect the club's performance?
A lot.
So we've, if you haven't seen them, we have at least 2 or 3 videos.
Yeah.
Mikey's Iron Fit was one of them.
Right.
I was swinging on a video once that we did about lie angle. I would say the biggest thing people should learn is the lie angle is not entirely about making a flat divot. So if you're going to a fitting and you're hitting off a lie board, that's like 10% of the story. You should be looking at lie angle to affect the starting direction of the ball.
I mean, in terms of, I think it was Jesse who was asking earlier about what things he should ask, or be aware of in the fitting. Be aware that if somebody pulls a lie board out on you, probably head for the door. Run a mile.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, if that's the archaic way that they're measuring lie angle these days,
it's no good anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't give you any feedback. I mean, it gives you feedback as to what the soul of the club is doing. But if low point in the golf swing is on average 4 inches after the golf ball, the golf ball has left the club face by the time that sole is in the ground and making a significant impression in the turf. So the ball's gone by that point.
Should be.
It should be. I mean, you're using lie angle to tilt the club face left and right. So you're using it to basically make your ball fly as true as it can be, as consistently as it can be. This is how much we value lie angle in here. We use a connector system called Club Connect's Fuse Fit. So it has a connector piece on there. You're not technically supposed to move the lofts and lies of these clubs, because this connector is kind of a secondary piece.
Okay.
Right. So it's glued on there, and it's supposed to just be what it is. We still bend them, even with those on, because it's so valuable. If someone comes in here and they need they're turning it over a little bit, and I know in my mind that 3 degrees flat is going to be the thing that really changes the ball flight. So the face orientation, is much more square rather than being toe up and pointing left for the right-handed golfer. Right. I'm absolutely going to put that in the loft and line machine and make that adjustment.
For sure.
There's no way I'm letting that customer leave without knowing what their ball flight is going to look like with the finished product.
Of course. Yeah. Quickly, it's a good club building question. So if someone feels that they ordered a set and the 7-iron feels lighter.
Say again?
So the if you have a club that's sort of an outlier, I mean, the first thing would be probably to take it to a builder and make sure that that's actually the case.
Yeah,
have your swing weights. And let's say the swing weight was lighter. What's your best option? Little lead tape until it balances out better?
Yeah, I mean, lead tape is a kind of love-hate thing for some guys. We looked to, we see a few weeks back, Scott Piercy, and his clubs, literally you can't see what manufacturer his clubs are. There's so much lead tape on them.
Yeah, we saw that. Yeah, his irons were ridiculous.
On the back of that, doesn't care. A bunch of people that come in here, if they have any sort of weighting preferences, they will specifically ask not for lead tape because they just don't like the look of it.
Which is fair enough.
Yeah, well, whichever.
Spend a lot of money on irons, you don't want to slap a bunch of stuff on the back.
Lots of different ways to do it. The one benefit of lead tape though is you're able to put mass, to locate the mass across the center of the head. Okay. Whereas if you're going to use tip weights or tungsten powder or some of the other club building tricks to up the weight of the club again, you have to then do that into the shaft. And we've talked about that before, about locating mass away from where the sweet spot is, so the CG actually moves in towards the heel and the hosel, which is not kind of where you're going to get maximum energy transfer for.
Right.
If you start to move weight away from the center of mass, you're not going to maximize that ball speed.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a couple more.
Okay.
Apparently an interesting interview with Bob Vokey talking about preferring amateurs to have flatter lies in their wedges.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What do you think?
Everyone pretty much to have flatter lies in their wedges.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's something we see all the time. And if you think of the amount of shots that better players or that players will play with a lower handle, so the hands are a bit lower.
It's the way your hands are delivering at impact.
So I mean, if you sort of not so much at impact, but even like if you get in the bunker, it's a good idea to sort of get down a little bit, lower the handle a little bit, that type of thing. If you're going to, sort of get into a slightly, we're not normally as in an upright posture when we're hitting pitch shots,
of course,
that type of thing. So, as soon as that lie angle that toe starts to creep up, that face is going to get a little bit left.
Right.
So
they'll tend to pull your shorter pitch shots and get the hosel involved in the bunker too.
And that's a bit like what we talk about with shaft specifications when it comes to wedges. Having slightly more appropriate shaft flexes for those wedges. Same with lie angle. It's not doesn't have to be progressive to the set because it's a unique task that club is taking. So I'll often, again, same thing when I'm doing the wedge fit. It doesn't often match the irons. I'll normally go a little bit flatter.
We've had this conversation too. And then into the very long irons, you may find that your longest irons are a bit more upright than the mid irons at times if a person has a certain ball flight pattern.
Absolutely. If you tend to, if you're a slicer and the longer and less loft, longer the club and the less loft you have, that slice gets a little bit worse. The lie angle can be protective in that sense.
Okay, we're going to take one more because this is a good question to elaborate on. So the question is basically, I think I'll paraphrase it, but I think it's about getting a fitting while your swing is changing or while you're developing your swing and practicing. So I can offer some insight myself because I'm doing the exact same thing.
Right.
So about a month ago, we fit my irons, we fit my driver. And since then, I've been working on my swing and the dynamics of my swing have changed. And even over the weekend, you gave me a different driver to take out just to see how the performance was. We'll probably tweak around with it in the irons as well. So I guess the question is, people are probably afraid to make a commitment at a purchase at a time when they know their swing is developing. So does it make more sense to come in, have a fitting appointment with you, talk about their swing changes, and then do a follow-up in a few weeks and make it more of an ongoing process?
Well, we do that anyway. That's part of our TXG kind of experience. There's a concierge part of that when you get clubs from us, there is a follow-up kind of series to that to make sure that what we saw that day is kind of, how you play generally, not just that one day.
But what about a situation where I've ordered a set of irons with iron shafts? Someone makes a swing change over the course of a month, and now those iron shafts really aren't suitable. I think that's what people are asking.
Well, so it goes back again to what we always talk about, the role of the shaft. What really has changed? Has do players really change their tempo and how much they load the shaft?
Probably not
much. Do they change the delivery dynamics where the path and face can change? Probably quite a bit. So that tells you that the biggest variable that needs to be adjusted if your swing is evolving is going to be loft and lies.
And that's something you can do very easily. And even with adjustable drivers, you can change weight configuration, which was an interesting video. We could really change a ball flight. You can change face angle, we can change loft too.
And maybe we've got a few more eyeballs on us now in the channel. Maybe we have to revisit the lie angle video again with you. Maybe when you get your new irons, and we sort of get them in your hands. Let's kind of do a little kind of gapping. Let's show you how we take someone's irons and make them as good as they can possibly be. So that's something that even if somebody comes in to see us and they've got a really good set of irons, and they hit the 6 iron well, and I go, well, you're hitting that really good. It's as good as anything else out there. I'm not going to then show them the door and go, nice to meet you, all the best. I'm going to go, how good can we make them? Is that let's now we've decided, we've came to the conclusion that your irons are really good for you. Let's hit them all and let's see what they do, and let's go right through those lineup.
That's a full follow-up session that you guys do.
I would do that in that session.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, because if I've established within, call it half an hour, that that their irons are good, the customer, there still needs to be more value provided to that. So then I'll look at all the irons in the bag and see if there's a set makeup that I can customize to make it for them like that.
Adjust a loft and lie here.
It's a bit like it's like the follow-up, Matty.
Gotcha.
It's what we would do in the follow-up, but we've established a little earlier that their irons are really good for them. Then we see if we can maximize and optimize them even further to get them to play the best golf they can. The number one thing when people leave here is we want them to be playing better. So,
and that's the biggest thing that people have a misconception about is that they feel they have to come for a fitting and buy something.
Yeah.
And the whole industry gets a bad rap because, oh, you're coming for a fitting, you have to buy. But there is a huge segment where you can take someone's really good existing clubs and maybe just help them make them that little bit better.
We do that
and they
all
get
the
plenty
time.
of value out of that.
Yeah, the retrofit, we do that all the time for people. It's just, you guys tell us what you want, and ultimately we'll work towards that goal.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Well, let's wrap that up. We got some really good videos coming today.
Yep.
We've got about a 16, 17 handicap coming in today.
Yeah.
Very steady player. I played golf with him yesterday at my home club. So we're going to be fitting his driver, his irons, maybe wedges if we have time.
Right.
So stay tuned for those. We'll probably not release them all this week, but I think it's going to be a series similar to what we did with Sammy, a similar swing speed. He's in sort of the 220 range in terms of speed, so it should be a great little series that we're going to film pretty much all day today.
Yep, absolutely. I think that'll be interesting because even though I didn't know Sam, you did, and you kind of knew a little bit about his game and his preferences. Today we're literally this is the the customer walking through the door that we've never met before.
Exactly, yeah. For you, exactly the same thing.
It's really, really good, and like you said, I think he's got some pretty current gear.
He's got more current gear than I do. So he'll be a self-admitted sort of tinkerer. I don't know how formal of a fitting process he's gone through before.
Right.
But watching him play yesterday, I don't think he's got really poorly fit clubs, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was some things that you could improve on. It'll be interesting to see. It'll even be maybe a situation where you can take a pretty good fit for him and make it just that little bit better.
Just like we were talking about, taking a set that are good, that are at 80%, and nudging that up towards the 100% we were looking for towards performing better. There might be a setup for him in the driver, or the iron setup, or a shaft, or a length, or a grip change. We've seen the value of all that stuff over the last several weeks. Yeah. The ways in which we can kind of manipulate the golf club to improve your feel and delivery and timing and all that sort of stuff. We have a lot of tools at our disposal.
Awesome. So look for that on Wednesday morning. That's the next time you'll see us. Yep. And any comments you have, leave them below on this stream. If you've just logged in, you can fast forward, as always. If you're seeing this later, then obviously you can't, but this full recording should be up in the next couple hours. Yep,
and there'll be a few questions here because we've skipped past a couple of things with Bryson's. We skipped past his Jumbo Max grips.
That's true.
We skipped past his unique lie angle at 73 degrees, which is 11 degrees more upright than a standard golf, than a standard 6-iron. So, guys, there's so much to get in today. We because we've done LPGA and PGA, we're trying to kind of condense the videos. We're not skipping past it because we don't think there's value to it. We've just got loads and loads to get in. So, bear with us on that.
Okay. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys in a couple days.